And I think a lot of this is about learning how to pivot in your career, learning how to pivot in your craft, and understanding that you're not always going to know everything, but just being able to express that you're willing to learn more, to grow more in it. Yeah. People are going to be like, yo, that's somebody I want on my team because that's somebody that I can grow with, and that's somebody who we can build up.
All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of World's Greatest Game. Super excited today because we actually have a friend. We've had a lot of friends on the show, but we have a very special friend, Stephanie Wash, Miss Emmy winner, 5 times over, Peabody, all of that, just queen of ABC, Disney, everything. We call her Wash News if you guys want to follow.
Yeah, we do.
Don't slide in her DMs too much. We don't know what her situation is, so leave that alone. But as you guys are watching, hey, hit the subscribe button, all of that. You guys know what to do, but we appreciate all the support. This is for you guys. But Stephanie, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
No,
I like the podcast, so.
Ooh. Okay. Really, really excited. We have a lot to cover because you've been covering a lot. So I'm going to try to interview who's normally interviewing. So this is an interesting one. But look, we focus on self-mastery right on this episode. And I thought you were just such an amazing person to have on because you've had to master not only your profession, but I think yourself, your mental, and find your peace and your own bit of sanity in the crazy world of news and covering some of the tragedies. Look, we tried to cover this, what was it, last week? And you got pulled into another event.
Yep, Surfside.
Absolutely.
Condo collapse.
All right, so there's constantly something going on. But I think for those of us that don't know, right, I know. Give an overview. What is it that you do? Right, what does one say, and what do we call you? What is the title? Because I just call you Queen of Media, but
I appreciate that.
But there's got to be a professional title.
I definitely appreciate that. So I'm a coordinating producer at ABCNews. I work for a group that's called the Specialized Units. We cover everything: breaking news. We do specials. We do documentaries for the ABC network. And I'm also a senior editorial producer for this new show we have called Soul of a Nation, which I know you've seen. And
incredible.
Thank you.
If you guys have not seen that, find a way to watch it.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. You had an episode with Brother RZA that was...
For sure.
Wow.
For sure.
Powerful.
Meeting him in person is even, the wow level was there.
I think on that episode, though, it was the dynamic of what you set up. So what goes into that, right, as you are putting together these shows? Like, what's the work look like? Are you booking these folks?
Yeah,
are you reaching out? Yeah, give us a rundown on how that works.
For sure. So for something like that, we called that segment In the Kitchen with Sonny Hostin.
Okay.
And the idea was that you were supposed to have these like real, raw, intimate conversations. Like we're sitting here right now having our wine. Like when the dinner party's over and y'all are just like shooting the shit and you're talking. That was the essence behind In the Kitchen. So when we said we wanted to do something on faith and religion as it applied to the Black community, we were just thinking like, wow, like that's just multi-layered. There's so many dimensions to that. So, we were like, we have to represent the Muslim faith or the Islam faith. We want to be able to represent Christianity. And then we want to represent somebody that maybe doesn't follow a faith.
Yeah.
So the folks that we got in the room, I remember sitting there watching it and just like being like, yes, to certain moments, because you got people that were... to get people that are so different in a room, but they can all agree on certain things and find the common things between them, it's a beautiful thing to see. And so what goes into that is, you do the research. You have to think about, okay, if we have person A with person B with person C, that's a great conversation. Then what happens is person A can't do it. It's a scheduling issue, or they just don't want to be involved. Yeah. And then you have to find out, who is your next person A. So it's always like connecting the dots, connecting the pieces. A big problem we had with Soul of a Nation was COVID.
Yeah.
People don't want to be in the same room. a lot of the celebrities were in bubbles for their productions.
Yeah.
So a lot of the problems we were running into was people were interested, but they were like, all right, but can I do it via Zoom?
Yeah.
And we weren't trying to do that. So
You know what was really impressive to me about, especially that episode, was how you had people with such differing views, but they were so respectful of one another.
yeah.
Right? Because, it's all good when people align and it's all kumbaya shit, but I love when people don't agree.
Yeah.
And they were so respectful of one another. And I thought, to me, it was beautiful because we don't all agree, right? Like, that's what this country is. That's what it is to be an American. That's what it is to have free will. But to see people be able to converse with differing views respectfully, we could use a lot more of that.
I agree. And that's the thing. You don't have to agree.
No.
But at least be willing to have the conversation and try to understand where the other person is coming from. Because there are many times I've walked into situations and I've had to interview somebody that's like wearing a Make America Great Again hat.
Yeah.
Or I walk into a town and I just feel, you feel that when you walk into a certain town down south especially. And when you talk to the people and you start, having those conversations and you start relating, you can see like a tide shifting. So I just think people have to be willing to get to know each other and find that common ground. And, that's the beautiful thing about journalism is just meeting all these people and, being able to kind of like implant something into their lives and they're implanting something into my life that I maybe didn't really understand and didn't really see before.
It's uncovering like that humanity. So
Yeah.
how did you get into it?
Ooh.
So give us a background. I mean, I know you're super smart, but like, how does one get into, winning 5 Emmys before 35?
So I'll tell you this. I was actually lucky. I was basically like busting my butt. I went to NYU for print journalism. I wanted to write for a magazine or write for a newspaper. That was my dream. And my final semester of college, I was like, yo, Steph, you have to get an internship. You're never going to get into journalism. I was working 3 jobs in college trying to help my dad pay down the tuition we had to pay. And so I got this internship at ABC, which was like a shock. And I started immediately in an investigative unit with like this renowned correspondent. And what happened was I was graduating a semester early from NYU.
Of course you were. Okay.
Shout out to the AP classes.
Yeah,
That's what it was. So I was graduating a semester early. So, I kind of had, I was it was a little bit better for me in terms of job market because I was coming out in the winter instead of the summer when everyone's looking for jobs. What happened was I was about to graduate. I just turned 21. I think it was the day before I graduated. And they came to me and were like, hey, we want to offer you a job. And the reason why is because they had sent me on some crazy assignment. I think at the time they were doing an investigation into a politician. And my job was to go down to I think it was, a city hall, go to the library, look at some credit card statements, match them up to his daily itinerary, and figure out if like what he said he was doing actually matched up with where he was spending money. So I'm like, God, this is a great assignment.
Okay.
I feel like Barbara Walters.
Yeah.
So I go down, and the woman in the library is like, we're closed. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I need a job. I have to get this done. Like, they sent me down. I'm an intern, please. And the woman said, okay. So she kindly allowed me to do it. I had no cell phone service in there. I come out. I have all these texts from the producers at ABC that I'm interning for. We need this date and this date and this date. And I'm like, the library's closed. I left. I don't have it. And they were like, well, go back Monday, I think it was. And I said, I graduate Monday. So that day came along, and I literally ran there, did the assignment, rushed back. My parents were in town. My sister was in town for my graduation.
Wow.
I remember I went to ABC, and like we had the cap and the gown ready, and I was like, here's the stuff. And I like went to graduation. And that was one of the things. The woman that recommended me, she was like,
committed.
You went for it.
Yeah.
Like, you showed that you actually care, that you have the heart, and that you can get the job done. So went from intern, started on the graveyard shift.
Wow.
Getting on the train at 2 a.m. in the morning for a 3 a.m. to noon shift.
Safe.
Not safe. Absolutely not safe. And we didn't have the budget where it was like, here's
Yeah.
a car service.
Yeah, I don't think there was car service. Like
Uber
there was
didn't
no
exist.
Uber back then.
Uber didn't
Yeah.
exist. And I was hopping on the J train from Bushwick.
The ghost train.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it was,
that's a
it was
solid
rough.
one.
It was
Yeah.
rough.
Brown line.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so you would work 3 to noon, and that was tough. And that was like my entry into live television, running scripts to anchors on
Wow.
live television, going to Times Square, running scripts to Chris Cuomo for Good Morning America at the time. Got into that, and you know what happened was Obama ran for president. I mean, I was at ABC at a great time. I started in 2007.
Yeah.
Ran for president. My current boss and executive with the Disney company, he needed somebody to come in and kind of just be his assistant and fill a void because everyone was working on this big Obama project. Came in, you know, showed out a little bit.
Okay.
Got to meet Michelle.
Uh-oh.
Go to a shoot with Diane Sawyer, and that was like my first taste. And I was like, I want this.
Yeah.
Like this is what I worked hard for. And you know, I eventually had to go back to the graveyard shift because it was a temp job. He said, you know, if I get a job, like I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Okay.
Got a job, went into it, and from there, you know, I went from intern to desk assistant is what we call it, which is like lowest of the totem pole as a
Yeah.
staff. PA, AP, producer, coordinating producer, and senior editorial producer. So I've just been climbing.
So you've been there since college.
Yeah.
You have 5 Emmys. So what are the Emmys for?
Oof. 2 of them are daytime Emmys for
Okay.
the work that we all do on Good Morning America. So those are
Very
cool
cool.
because you get to share it as a team, and
Beautiful.
I love the GMA team. The other 3, we did a town hall with President Obama. Crazy stuff was going on in the world. Alton Sterling had just been killed.
Yeah.
Philando Castile had been killed. You had the shooting of the police officers in Dallas. And so Obama in D.C. sat down with ABC. We had it on ABC and ESPN. And we just got a bunch of people in the room that were related to these incidents from Ferguson to whatnot. Got in a room and just talked to Obama, and we called it The President and the People. So we got one for that.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one I got for some work I did here in LA. I was down on Skid Row, I think it was for like about a month. Pope Francis agreed to do
Wow.
something with us, a virtual town hall from Italy. And he was very specific about, his team was very specific about, you know, we want to talk to the homeless. We want to speak to immigrants. So we were down at the border. And so we were down on Skid Row, going from shelter to shelter, talking to people, learning their stories. We got them all in a room, and then some of them were able to talk to the Pope. So that was crazy. And then the one that I'm most proud of and the one that I cherish the most was for the Pulse nightclub shooting,
Yeah.
which was just
In Orlando. The
yeah.
Orlando shooting.
Yeah. I mean, I was in Nashville on vacation, and this is often how things happen. I'll be somewhere on vacation and something happens, and it's like the vacation gets cut short,
Yeah.
or it's like get on a thing. So I was going from Nashville to Atlanta, heading back to New York. You know, when I got on the plane, by the time I had landed, the death toll was up. They were like, yeah, go to Orlando. Just hop on the flight.
Yeah.
I hopped on the flight, went to the hospital, and I was literally greeting people that were survivors as
Yeah.
they were walking out with like blood on them, no shoes. It was
You know, one of the things I always respect about you is just dedication. Like, and now hearing your story, it was evident even from your internship at school where you're like, I got graduation, family's in town, and you go and knock out your assignment.
yeah.
I mean, you were dedicated to the craft. But I think we're gonna come back to that. One thing that's interesting though is you named 5 Emmys, and then the Peabody. So give the Peabody
Oof.
is because that's another award.
We
You
just
plaqued
won
up.
that. We
Okay.
just won that. And, you know, last year was a crazy year. There was a lot going on. There was George Floyd. We may have never known about Breonna Taylor had it not been for what happened to George Floyd. And so they approached me and my coworkers and said, hey, we want to do a 2-hour documentary special on the Breonna Taylor case. And I got to know the attorney Benjamin Crump
Yeah.
years ago back in Sanford when Trayvon Martin was killed.
Yeah.
And, we've just developed a relationship over the years. And so when that happened and him and, the law firm that represented her family was involved, they were like, hey, just go down to Louisville. So I spent a lot of time down in Kentucky during that period, getting to know her family, getting to know her boyfriend, the attorneys, getting to know the community, like all the organizers. So that one is just like near and dear to my heart, because Black women, when we're the victims of police violence, we don't often hear about it. So winning that Peabody, for them to say, this was a body of work that mattered, it's bittersweet when you win awards for stuff like,
of course, for tragedies. Yeah.
But that one mattered, and it made it even better that people like Ben Crump and Lenita Baker, the family's attorney, were like y'all deserve this. Thank you.
Yeah. There's another one that I know I got to watch the premiere with you on, Parkland.
Ooh, yeah.
Because that was another massive event that occurred, and horrible tragedy in this country. And you stuck with those families and those kids for years.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So talk about that a little bit.
So, put this wine down. So.
No, you can hold the wine. You might need the wine for this one. I know this was heavy.
I'm gonna try not to cry on this wine because those kids mean a lot to me. Those families.
Ooh, let's wait because I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. You might have a little producer skill in that.
Look, I'm working on it. I'm gonna get the baby. What's underneath the Emmy? What's the amateur one?
I don't know.
They need to come up with that. That's what I'm going for.
No, I want you to get your Emmy. I want you to get an Emmy for this.
I'm gonna get the baby one.
No, I'm hoping for big things for you.
If you take it over, then yes, maybe. But please, Parkland.
So the Parkland, how I got involved in Parkland is actually kind of crazy. I had a friend from NYU who hit me while I was in my office watching it all unfolding on TV. And she said, I have a friend and her little brother can't find his best friend. And so she was like, do you want me to connect you? So I told my job, like, hey, if you need people to go to Parkland, I'll go. Went straight from the office, because I keep a to-go bag in my office.
Of course you do.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And so go straight down to Parkland, go down there. And the first person I met down there was actually David Hogg. I showed up to his house, got to know him, got to know his family. We had him on Good Morning America the next morning.
Yeah.
And from there, it just built. And I will say this, from the minute that I stepped foot there and saw what those kids were talking about and heard those parents talking about their kids and how they were feeling and how they were communicating that trauma, I knew it was completely different from any tragedy we had ever covered, because we all know that sadly the news cycle just resets.
Yeah.
But there was something about Parkland where those kids were like, no, you're not going to forget about us.
Yeah.
And you felt it almost immediately. And what happened was I went down there. I ended up meeting the friends of this boy that I'd found out that was missing. It turned out to be Joaquin Oliver, who they call Guac.
Yeah.
And met his girlfriend, met his friends. And, it just went from there. And I think ABC quickly realized, all of us that were down there, like, hey, we got to stay down here and actually, be down here to follow what's going on down here. Like, the cameras can't leave.
Yeah.
Like, there's something happening. There's something brewing down here. And, I mean, a lot of people could say that those kids in Parkland actually sparked change in this election, the way they had
everything.
Yeah.
Those kids were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Way ahead of their time.
So I spent a year. I remember, somebody was asking me, how many days have you been in New York this year? And when I looked at my Marriott app, it was like I'd spent over 90 nights in Marriott hotels in Parkland that year. But, those families are special. Like, they literally would be like, oh, you're not shooting? Do you want to come over, have a meal? They were very special. But that town was rocked by what happened to them.
You really did them real justice on how you put that together and covered the lives and the impact of these, horrific mass shootings. I mean, these events, like you say, the news cycle resets so quick. And so people are victims, and you just, you almost don't even remember who they were. Like the humanity is lost. And I thought it was so special. I remember all of us just sitting there, and I remember all the applause that you got at the end, but it's because just the humanity, like, and what you were able to show, just the impact of what these are, where we need real change.
Yeah.
We need real change. What's going on? Like, these aren't just these like casual events. Like, this isn't war.
Yeah.
Like, we're over here in peace in our country, and these kids aren't safe. And what's going on? I mean, we have a real crisis going on. But look, I mean, you started off this story by, one, hoping that you wouldn't cry. So kudos, you did not cry. So I think the wine did help. So I'm glad we did that. but let's talk about what it takes to get through that, right? You got a high profile, very intense, pressured job, but also dealing with a lot of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an empathetic person, so you're feeling these emotions from all these people. You're not covering the super positive stories about puppies and shit. You're covering the darkest things that are going on in America, from George Floyd to Breonna Taylor, the Parkland shootings, right, to what's going on at the nightclub in Orlando. How do you deal with that, right? And not only that, you're also traveling. You're away from your support system and your group because you're in a Marriott for 90 days out of the year.
Yeah.
How are you handling that?
I gotta say, my tribe, my support system, which includes you, they check in on me. They'll be like, yo, Steph, we saw this is going on. How are you? How are you doing? They, like, my friends know when I'm away for a long period. They know when to check in. They know when they don't hear from me for a little bit, like, okay, let's make sure Steph's okay. I originally, it was very difficult for me to actually manage my emotions, because you're listening to trauma, you're experiencing trauma, you're seeing it, you're feeling it, you're like submerged in it. And so I've had a lot of breakdowns where I've been in courtrooms, or I've been in an interview and I'm just in tears. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm a human.
Yeah.
I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm reacting to it, and I empathize with a lot of people. But, you know, as journalists, we're always encouraged to talk to your therapist.
Yep.
Take the time off if you need to. It's very hard to take time off because, I mean, we've been...
Always something.
Yeah.
Sadly, in this country
Since
right now.
last February, nothing has stopped when it comes to what we've been consuming in terms of news and media. But you know what actually helps me is I've come to realize that I'm a very sensitive person. And when I see people hurting, because I just feel like I have a big heart and I care about people. So when I see people hurting, you know, I'm going to wear that emotion on my sleeve.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned by being surrounded by so much trauma is that all of the things I complain about on a daily basis are nothing. It could always be worse.
Perspective. The perspective is helping.
And so it's like when you're crying about something, you're, oh, this is so awful, this happened. You will sometimes have people that are like the very victims of the thing you're crying about be like, it's okay, honey, like they're calming you down.
Wow.
And in that moment, you're like, all right, I gotta pick my head up and I have to keep moving on, because if they're strong enough to carry this on their backs, then I need to be strong enough to tell their story. And for me, it's all about, that's what this job is.
But, you know, I think it's bigger than the job, because I think it's a lesson for all of us. All right. One, you wear your emotions, so you're not afraid to cry, right? No. You're not afraid to publicly empathize. I think you've also used perspective as a superpower, right? To kind of keep things where they are, right? To not let certain things get too big for you, right? Because you can look and compare it, which I think really, really helps. And that's a lesson for a lot of us. But it's interesting for me when I interact with you, you're not burnt out. So there's something in that, whether it is taking time off or therapy or whatever it is.
Off?
Yeah, because I'm like, I haven't seen the time off. So
I had 2 days off while I was here, and I worked both days.
I was about to say, I wanted to come back to that because I was like, that sounded like bullshit. But for some reason, you are so energetic. Like, you have so much energy for your friends, to be able to go out to try to make sure that you're living life. How you run all the time. I don't know how the hell you get all this running in.
That's part of the overcoming the trauma. That's a coping mechanism.
Okay.
Like when you run, I'm just releasing so much stress, so much like built up negative energy in my body. The running is all mental strength.
Because you posting some damn real Boston Marathon times. I'm looking like, how the hell is she doing
I will say
all this?
something. I ran 3 miles today in LA. Your heat is different. It's very different.
No, that smog is different. That's what probably got you. We gotta work on our air quality out here. But I mean, it really is. It's amazing how you keep it all together. Because I think there was a lot of tragedy going on over the last 2 years between COVID deaths, right, and it being family members, right, and just the fear and I mean, looking at the kids not being able to interact with their friends, right, the isolation from folks that were single, sitting in apartments in New York City, like we know, by themselves, right. There was a lot that folks were dealing with. Then you had, some of the systemic racism and some of the tragedies that were taking place with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and the list just kept going on and on. And I noticed people were burning out emotionally, just from, they're marching, right? They're doing the thing, they're pushing for it. People are asking them how to help, and which are bullshit questions, right? Because proclamations people were making. Shout out to Jeff Johnson on that and how he broke that down on another episode. How do you prevent yourself from burning out? Where do you find the energy to keep going? Is it the love for the story, right, and making sure that you do them justice? Is it your routine, your process? Is it all of it? Like, what is that? How do you keep that energy?
A big part of it is the love for the people.
Okay.
So I separate the people from the story. And I would say I'm my strongest when I have too much to do. So I'm somebody...
Like that. Like that.
But for real, I'm somebody that you could give me 60 tasks. You could give me 60 tasks, and they would say, delegate, Stephanie. Just give it to somebody else to do. And I'm like, no, I got this, because I'm somebody, my father always taught me growing up, if you want to get something done and you want to get it done right, you got to do it yourself.
Ooh.
And so I could take 60 tasks.
I don't want my teams to hold that. I really need you guys. So I don't want to do it myself.
No dig on them.
Yeah.
No dig on them. But, I learned that in college. So what happened was I wanted to graduate from NYU early. I was like, these dorms are expensive. I want to get out there. I want to save me and my father a little bit of money. And so I started doubling up on college courses so I could avoid paying that final dorm fee that final semester.
Yeah.
I got my best GPA in the semesters where I was working all my jobs, taking 2 extra classes a semester. And so I realized for me, I'm someone that can't sit with idle time.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why I'm able to go is because I do have a passion for telling these stories. And I'm usually like probably one of the first people to raise my hands when something happens. I'm like, do you need someone to go? I'm willing to go. Okay. And I don't think what people understand with news is when you pack your bag to go, you don't know how long you're going for normally.
Yeah.
So, when we went down to Surfside recently for this condo collapse, we had folks that were like, oh, I just packed for the day or 2. And I was like, girl, I packed for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I was down there for 8 days.
Yeah.
I don't experience the burnout. I don't.
Thank God.
I don't. And I think there's only one time that I actually did feel like I need a break from this. And it was after the Charleston church shooting. And I took I needed a break after vacation. That. Yeah. That took me out. Yeah. Shit. So I needed a damn near 3-week vacation at that point.
Wow.
And it's the thing where it's like no questions asked. Like, take your time. Get your
you listen to the signs. So I mean, look, with that, go. All the travel. Mm-hmm. How's the personal life? Ooh. How's the love life? Look, it might be a different show, but I get to. Okay, it's my show, so shit, I get to go wherever I want on this one. Because look, in the spirit of self-mastery, right, it's all things, right? It's relationships are part of that, right? So it's not only our mental health, but it's our relationships. Yeah. You talked about your tribe. Love life, how was that with that kind of travel?
It's difficult. I think it's difficult to date. I live in New York City. It's
Yeah.
difficult to date in New York City as it is.
Yeah.
It's especially difficult when you're a career-minded woman. And I am somebody that I knew very early on what I wanted to be, where I wanted to be, and I'm very independent, self-sufficient. And I think sometimes men can be intimidated by that. I think in some of my past relationships, I did experience that. So, right now I'm single. I am dating. And
We're not going to ask you to name names. Look,
we're not going to name names.
The reason I wanted to ask, right? And there's always a reason. But I think,
Stop.
look, there's so many working women, professionals, very career minded that I'm around that are just like you, right?
Yeah.
Some in relationships, some in not. What are you looking for in a partner? What do they need to understand? Because, big thing. I'm saying a lot of these brothers, they got to level up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to continue to drive your career. I don't think you should ever have to take a back seat. So what is the right match for you?
The right match.
And this is not so y'all brothers out there can try to fake it and shit. We're not doing that.
Why are we giving them the code?
Yeah, I don't want to give them too much gold, but I think it's a conversation that we need to have because it's part of your story.
Yeah. I'm going to be very honest with you.
Please.
I thought, because my parents have been together since 1981, have 4 kids, rocking, heavy. I thought that by the age of 25, I would have found my husband, had a kid or two, and been able to continue my career, and we would have figured it out. Okay. New York City make things a little more difficult, as you know, having lived there for a long time. But I think what I look for in a partner, I want somebody who's just as busy as me, someone who's just as ambitious as me, somebody who I can come home to at the end of the night and be able to tell them about my day, and they just listen. That's what I look for in a relationship. And I think there's this misconception that if you're like a go-getter woman that's in your 30s and you're single, like you don't want to get married, you don't want to have kids. I want all of that. Yeah. I feel like I can have it all. I feel like this is we're not talking about when my parents got married in the 80s.
Yeah.
There are plenty of women at my job that I've seen that have like set that precedent for me that you can have that. You can have a family, be a good mother, and be on the road if you want to.
Yeah.
So I think some people, like, when they look at my Instagram, they're, oh, she's always away, da, 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 da. Like, I want a chick that's going to be up under me all the time. I'm not going to be that.
Yeah.
But, like, I want somebody that I can build with and have a relationship with. And I'm going to have that. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Do you think, because what you described was the support that you need, do you think that you can also support someone else? Given the schedule and just the movement, right? And all that you're doing.
Yeah. I care too much. So I'm the type of person that I will, like, set aside my feelings, what I have going on. Like, I won't even talk about what I have going on because I want to make sure you're good. Like, like I said, I have a big heart. I care too much. And so I've been in situations where the times where I have felt burned out is when I feel like I've been managing somebody else that I'm dating.
And the career.
And my career. Oof. And I'm like, well, damn, are you ever going to ask me about my day and what happened?
Yeah, that's a lot. Look, you can't do all that.
Yeah. So
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, but when the time is right, the time will be right. I think people put like this time stamp on when you're supposed to get married, have kids, meet the love of your life. And I'm like, if it didn't happen, then God is still working.
No, I love it. I want to touch on that because I think there's so much that there's a lot of people watching, especially when we're when you look at the Venture community, you got a lot of entrepreneurs, right? And part of being an entrepreneur is inherent selfishness at times, right? Because you're so driven and often blinded by the passion for the work.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of that. You have a lot of passion for your work in the story. And your social life can take a back seat. Mm-hmm. And it's tough. There's sacrifices that you can make, or that you have to make sometimes. But I think the goal is always to find the partner.
Yeah.
Right? Who who understands the mission, understands the passion, and can be accretive to the situation.
And it's attractive to them.
Absolutely.
It doesn't detract. It doesn't take away from our relationship or what I'm giving to you.
Yeah.
They see it as like, oh, she has her thing going on.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good thing to me. She's an asset. Like, I like having that by my side.
I used to have this saying. I'm always like, be number one in your category. Because I think a lot of times what gets people in trouble is they start to think that there's balance in time between different things, right? That someone can be jealous of the amount of time that you put in your craft, right, in your work and your passion, and try to compare that with the time that you put in them. And I'm like,
you can't do that.
Be number one in your bucket.
Yeah.
Are you the number one, partner relationship in the equation? Because if you're number one there, you're winning. You're number one.
But
you can't compete against the work.
If you're coming home to a home-cooked meal at night, I'm cooking dinner, I'm doing all these...
Seamless works.
What are we talking about?
Uber Eats is always on time.
But,
all right.
You're lucky I don't say, Uber Eats. Like, I don't
Figure
get
it out. No, but I think that's great, and I wanted you to be able to talk about that. I mean, look, you've covered a lot, and I know, you got to go, so I'm not gonna hold you too long. We were a little late, y'all, so that's my bad.
It's okay. It's okay. Production.
Yeah. It's real time. This is live. We okay. But I want to just give, you have a lot of advice. I think you're on an incredible journey.
Thank you.
We have a theme here where the guest always gets the last word. So I got to give you the last word. What do you want to share to, I think, a lot of working professionals, I think men and women in general, that love their craft?
Yeah.
Right? And are dedicated. Anything that you want to share with them and give them your, wash news bit of advice.
I got it. I think one of the most important things that has helped me has been the sense of sometimes we think we're underqualified for the next step. And we're questioning, how am I going to get there? How am I going to convince somebody who's looking at my resume that because I don't have A, B, and C that they're looking for, that my D, E, and F doesn't qualify me for it or isn't enough. And I think sometimes you have to go for those giant leaps, even when you don't feel like you're qualified for them, and just be understanding of what you bring to the table. And another thing is, a lot of times when people ask you if you know something, and you're like, nah, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know the answer to that, and you leave it at that, it's like, what are you doing? I don't know, but I'll find out. Or I don't know how to do that, but I can learn. Like, are you going to teach me? And I think sometimes it's that extra oomph at the end of it where people are like, oh, that's somebody that I can train, or that's somebody that's teachable. That's somebody who doesn't think that they know it all. Because if you ask me a question, I've learned the hard way a couple of times. Like, I was doing some digital, like, on-air reporting at a certain point, and they asked a question that I wasn't expecting, and I'm spewing off facts, and at the end of it, I was like, you got to cut that, because I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I should have just been like, you know what, and pivoted to something else that I didn't know what I was talking about. And I think a lot of this is about learning how to pivot in your career, learning how to pivot in your craft, and understanding that you're not always going to know everything, but just being able to express that you're willing to learn more, to grow more in it. Yeah. People are going to be like, yo, that's somebody I want on my team because that's somebody that I can grow with, and that's somebody who we can build up.
Well, I lied. That's not my last question. So
It's okay.
Now you've prompted another one. What is next?
What is next?
What are you looking forward to?
You know what I'm looking forward to is actually not knowing what is next.
Damn. I like that answer.
Yeah. I think 2020 showed all of us that we have no idea what the hell is going on in the world.
Facts.
We have no idea what tomorrow is going to look like. I think all of our lives were uprooted, shifted, changed, some for the better, some for the worse. And I'm really actually looking forward to, like, what is 2020, the end of 2021 going to look like and whatnot. And we have the first black female president of a major network at ABC right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I was saying 10 years ago to my parents, I want to be president of ABC News, that's not that crazy anymore.
No.
So for me, it's like everything that has happened in 2020 that has been so negative, so awful, but it's like definitely shaped our lives for the better in many ways. On top of the fact of me seeing growth in front of me at my own company and having that inspiration, I'm like, I might be able to say I'm president of ABC News one day.
Look, they'd be lucky to have you. So they better come.
That.
They better come with it. ABC. You better come with it. Because if not, somebody else will. But
I hope they're watching.
Look. If not, I'm gonna send it to them. You just tell me who to send it to. Look, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on. Your story is incredible. I think there's so much that we can take away on just how you can deal with the passion, the work, and then balancing your life. But ultimately, the thing that sticks, with me is just your dedication, right? The passion that you have. I think so many of us need to tap into that and find something that we love as much as you love telling other people's stories. So thank you for actually sharing your story, which you don't get to do often.
I don't.
So I appreciate that. And on that note, look, thank you guys. This is another episode of World's Greatest Game. Hit the subscribe button, share, all that, and make sure you follow Wash News on Instagram, probably on a whole bunch of other platforms.
Twitter.
But she is one to follow Twitter. If you want to see who's breaking news first, it's this woman right here. So thank you. I appreciate you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Keenan.
Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie, I've never heard your story before.
You're fucking incredible.